Hi, everyone. With so many millions of us finding ourselves working from home these days, it's a safe bet that we're going to be doing more and more virtual or online presentations. And I know for a fact that this is not everybody's favorite thing to do, what's often called webinars. They're awkward, they're stilted, they can be kind of boring. But the difficulty factor is even higher these days because we're having to do it from home and we're facing all kinds of distractions, whether they're family members or pets in the household. Uh, we're cut off, isolated physically from our colleagues. And of course, we're all dealing with technology problems because we probably don't have the same tech at home that we enjoy at the office. Well, I'm here to help you. I'm going to give you some simple strategies and tactics that you can implement right away to become more comfortable, more confident, and more effective anytime you have to give a virtual presentation or participate in an online meeting. And if you take nothing else away from today, it's this: the number one rule: everything on 11. If you're not a fan of This Is Spinal Tap, what that means is, it should be obvious, it's better than 10. It's 11. Everything is bigger, more energy, more volume, more excitement, engagement, interaction, more compelling visuals, more of everything. And that's what you need to do to keep your audience engaged. So we're going to talk about three things. We're going to talk about the technology associated with doing an online presentation, the content, what you say, and the delivery, how you say it. Now, I'm kind of doing this a little backwards because the technology stuff is probably the most tactical, but I think it's also the most urgent because I've heard from a lot of people that they're having trouble setting up their home offices and getting the ideal equipment in place. So we're going to cover that first. And if you're wondering, who the hell is this guy? Maybe you followed a link to get here. Well, I'm Rob Biesenbach, and it is my mission to put an end to death by PowerPoint and make the world's conference rooms and ballrooms and online meeting rooms safe again for audiences. I do that through keynotes. I do lots of training on presentation and communication skills, and I've literally worked with hundreds of senior executives from CEO on down, helping them become more powerful, persuasive communicators. And I hope to be able to do the same for you right now in a small way. And it won't just be me. Last week, I was so worked up about this, I posted very quickly my top 10 virtual presentation tips on LinkedIn, and I got tons of insights from my LinkedIn connections. So I'm going to be sharing some of their wisdom with you, and so it's not just me talking. So let's jump right in. Let's look at the technological hurdles we may face and how to overcome them. And it starts with the setup. Something goes wrong with your computer. You call customer service, or you call IT. What's the first thing they ask you? Did you reboot? And I know it's always met with skepticism when they tell you that, but it is true that rebooting your computer solves a world of ills. My own computer, it gets bogged down, it gets slow, it's more likely to crash. So before any presentation, I always make sure I do a hard restart. It just clears out the cache. It gets things moving much more smoothly. So I encourage you to do that as a first step. Do a little desktop hygiene. If you have private files or weird files on your desktop, maybe hide those and close out any of the distracting programs, messaging apps, and other things that are going to go bleep and bloop and blorb and show little pop-up windows during your presentation. So a little hygiene goes a long way. Strengthen your connection. Chances are, if you have a family or pets or other people at home, you are going to be wandering off to the furthest reaches of your home in order to find some privacy where you won't be disturbed. And the farther you go, the farther you're likely to be from your router. So a couple of things. If you're using Wi-Fi, well, what we did, my wife, Karen, she went out and got a Wi-Fi booster. So now we can actually get internet upstairs as well as downstairs, which is an amazing thing. And then I went out the other day because sometimes Wi-Fi is not enough, especially for something like this. So I went out and bought a 50-foot Ethernet cable that is going from here all the way across the house to our router. That's the best kind of connection, the most reliable connection. So think about that. Next is audio. Um, you know, I use professional audio. I have a professional microphone here that costs $50 to $100. Most people, it's not necessary to get that kind of audio quality, but I'll tell you, bad audio will be really, really distracting. And I got a number of tips from my friends. The first one who mentioned audio was David Fisher. They call him D-Fish. He said audio is a really important part of any video content. He uses a clip-on microphone, which you can use. Like I said, I've got the professional USB microphone. There's all kinds of options. And another friend, Adam Fuss, he said, do some experimenting, because you have a choice of talking through your computer, or calling in on your cell phone, or calling in a landline if you have one of those, or plugging in ear pods. He says experiment, and I think it's a great idea. Call somebody and try the different methods and see which one gives you the best audio quality. Get there early. I've used probably 10 different webinar platforms in my life. There's GoToWebinar, there's WebEx, there's Zoom, there's Skype, there's a bunch of proprietary systems, and everyone's a little different. And this is a great reminder from my friend Gary Ross. Take a minute before the presentation or meeting and find out where your controls are, especially the controls for your video and your audio. You don't want to be one of those people who leaves their audio on while they're doing something embarrassing. So figure all that stuff out ahead of time. All right. Now, let's get into the action. I would encourage you to use your webcam if the platform offers that option, because it's just, otherwise it's just the audio and your slides maybe. And it's much better if people can see your face and see your expression. So use that if you can. And when you do, go to the light, Carol Ann. Don't sit in front of a window. You look like you're in the witness protection program. I have got almost every lamp in the house in this place, as well as sunlight trying to light my face. It still, I don't think, is quite enough, but it's not bad. Elevate your screen. Nobody wants to give you a nostrilectomy. In internet parlance, this angle on a webcam is called the ugly maker. And if you are not blessed with natural youth or beauty, it's not going to be very flattering. It's much better. I've got mine propped up on a shelf here. You can use a stack of books. Elevate your screen to about eye level, or even a little higher. Look at the lens instead of the screen. Our tendency is to look at the screen instead of looking through the lens at the people. And this is another great tip, because it might feel awkward looking through the lens, especially if you're in like a Zoom session where you can actually see the other people. But I got this great tip from another speaker, Catherine Johns. She said, picture you're looking through the lens at somebody you know well, like your ideal client. It could be your ideal teammate, coworker, your dog, whoever it is, somebody who will give you a good, positive feeling. And imagine that. Take care of your set dressing. Boy, if you got audience members like me who are a little bit fussy, I will want to jump right through the internet and come to your office and tidy it up if I see like stacks of stuff spilling all over the place. So do a little set dressing, make it nice. I have to tell you, mine is not ideal. Oh, and by the way, maybe in my bio, I should have mentioned, I've also have a second career as an actor. So you might see you might be wondering what those show posters are doing, but it's hard to configure my office because I've got windows on two sides, doors over there, and another door over there. So this is the only place to put my desk. It would be better if I could make it better. So tidy up a little bit, but don't go overboard. You don't want the hostage video where you're pressed up against a bare wall. Not a good look, not very comforting. And put out the do not disturb sign, literally and figuratively. Turn off your devices, mute them, and tell people that not to disturb you, that you've got an important web call to make. Unless you want to end up like this guy, which would not be a bad fate. I mean, that was a pretty funny moment. He became viral and famous. But I have learned over many years, when somebody tells a great joke and then a few minutes later I say the joke, it's not nearly as effective. So this is probably a once in a lifetime thing. So I wouldn't try to create your own viral moment there. Okay, we are done with tech. We are 1/3 of the way through, at least in terms of sections. Content's a little longer. Let's look at what you can do to design and plan the most compelling content possible. And the first step in any communication, whether it's a webinar or an in-person communication, is know who your audience is and know what they're dealing with. In any presentation, we are dealing with people who are distracted. We've got a whole world of other options literally at our fingertips that we could be doing instead of listening to you. But when it's online and a camera's not on us as an audience member, we can do anything. We've got all these tabs open and we could be shopping and reading the news and doing email and Facebooking and all of these other things. So that's what we're competing against. So the number one cure for that is variety. Shake things up every 10 minutes. This is actually based on a scientific principle. I've heard different numbers, like you should change things up every 8 minutes or 8.5 minutes. 10 is a nice round number. What it means is don't keep doing the same thing for more than 10 minutes. When you are able, shift things around, change topics, do some Q&A, tell a story, show a video, do an exercise, take a poll. So give people some variety so it wakes them up. The next question to ask about the audience is, what do they want? It's inevitable at the outset of any presentation when I'm working with an executive, they say, this is what I want to tell them, or this is what they need to know. And I always tell them to back up, because before they tell me what they want, I want to know what their audience wants. What are their needs and concerns and objections and desires? I want to know those, because if we don't respond to the audience's needs, we are dead in the water. And finally, especially these days, try to have a sense of people's mood. Right now, people are pretty stressed out. They're pretty worried about themselves, their family, the economy. So understanding the mood will help shape the tone of what you present. And if your presentation is tone deaf, it will fail. All right? So moving beyond the audience, I think one of the hardest things to do is to focus our content. We are subject matter experts. We know so much. It is so hard to decide what's essential and what's not essential. So here are some tips. I call it kitchen sink syndrome, where we just throw everything in there, including the kitchen sink. So how do you sort the wheat from the chaff, to mix my metaphors? Well, less is more. Less of everything, less content, less data, less stuff, shorter. Brevity, 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 brevity. In fact, Jay Baer, who you may have heard of, he's a great author and marketer. He just recently did a thing called 7 Virtual Event Success Factors. I won't give you the ridiculously long URL because you're an adult and you can Google those words right there and find it for yourself. But one of the tips he said, if your presentation is normally a 60-minute presentation face-to-face, cut it by 15 minutes or even 30 minutes for in-person. So shorter is always safer in an online presentation. Next thing, understand that you're going to have more than one bite at the apple. People put so much pressure on themselves to get everything into their allotted 20 minutes or 30 minutes or 45 minutes. You don't have to do that. You can send information in advance. You could send some afterwards. You could follow up with a link. You could do a video, a white paper, all manner of things. So don't feel like you have to pack it all into your short presentation. Next, this may sound like common sense, but you'd be surprised. Have a goal for your presentation, and not 6 goals, but 1 goal. What do you want people to think or do differently, and gear everything toward that? And anything that doesn't line up with that goal, that's ripe for cutting. What you want to do is you want to find this happy intersection between your goals and your audience's needs and desires. Find that sweet spot in the Venn diagram. And here's another filter to use. There are 3 questions that you should ask before every presentation or any communication. What do I want them to know? What do I want them to feel? And what do I want them to do? Now, no, that's knowledge, that's the information, that's the easy stuff. Seth Godin, a great marketer, says if all you're doing in a presentation is transmitting information, it's a wasted opportunity. What you want is you want people to do something. You want some change in behavior or thinking. You want them to align, to get on board, to rally, to buy, to approve. Whatever you want them to do, make that your goal. And in the middle there is maybe a controversial one. What do you want them to feel? Because there has to be some kind of emotional core to your message, because science shows this. We are not rational creatures. We love to think we are, but we are governed by our emotions. So you can't just appeal to logic. You've got to find some emotional core to your message, whether you're appealing to security or comfort or opportunity or fear or insecurity, any of those things. They're all legitimate grounds. And there's no feel do thing. I'm always surprised. I do this with all my clients, and they always inevitably get some kind of benefit from it. I was coaching a client for about 6 months for a big talk she had, and it doesn't always take 6 months, but she was great. She really wanted to work on this. She was a scientist, and one day we had to meet in her office. And I saw on her wall, she had the no feel do sheets. We'd put them up on flip charts. And she'd taken those and put them on the walls of her office. And I said, oh, you still got those from months ago? She said, I look at them every day. They are such a great reminder to me of where I need to be in terms of my message. So I thought that was a great compliment. So try that sometime. Less data. There's lots of places you can put the data. It doesn't all have to go in the presentation. You don't have to prove it to them 8 times. Sometimes just 3 times is enough, or maybe even more than enough. Less data, more narrative, more context, more examples, more texture, more background. All of that stuff is going to help give people the big picture of what you're trying to accomplish and what you want of them. One final aspect of the content, the visuals. Death by PowerPoint still exists, and it exists in the real world of real presentations and in virtual presentations as well. But here's the thing. Do not use your slides as scripts. And yes, this is from The Godfather, another great movie. But it's when you're reading stuff off of your slides, it's problematic from a number of standpoints. First of all, you don't have to have it there. You can put your notes in the notes part of your presentation. You could even have them in your hand. And when you're presenting virtually, look, I've got a little cheat sheet that I haven't actually used yet, but you never know. So there's lots of other places to put your notes. Do not put them on the slide, because you don't want your audience reading. Because here's what happens. It creates cognitive overload. And this is based on science. An audience member, they're watching you present, they're listening to what you're saying, they're trying to read the screen, they're multitasking, and the message gets muddled. So you want to clean your slides up. Bullets kill. Too much text kills. You need to replace that as much as possible with compelling images. So I have a number of steps. I have a whole different presentation on how to create TED-style slides. But I'm going to just boil it down to a few points. And this one will get you 80% of the way there. 1 idea per slide. Not 2, not 5, not 10. 1 single idea per slide. And I know you're thinking, oh my God, I'm going to have a lot of slides. It's okay. I was doing a 30-minute presentation recently, and the organizer saw my deck. It was like 78 slides. And she said, you are not going to get through 78 slides in 30 minutes. It's impossible. And I said, you're right. I'm going to get through it in 27 minutes. So we have 3 minutes for Q&A. And I did. I'd rather see your slides go by at a fairly brisk clip than to spend hours watching 1 visual. Okay, so that's rule number 1. 1 idea per slide. You marry that with 1 compelling image, and you minimize the amount of text. We don't need to see a lot of text on there. Be like Steve. Steve Jobs pioneered this approach, and you see it all the time in TED Talks, but Steve was maybe the originator of it. Steve, like I know him. But not all of his colleagues were on board with this idea. They still, use the death by PowerPoint. So try to eliminate the clutter from your slides. Try to make them a little more visual. But I'm living in the real world, and I tell all my clients this. From a practical standpoint, you're not going to be able to have all of your slides and all of your decks look like the kind of slides you're seeing right now. You will occasionally, or maybe frequently, have to use text. So if you do, let me please give you some tips. Make them bullet points. And when you use bullets, you should build them a bullet at a time so you don't overwhelm us. And a final tip about this. Bullets are phrases, not sentences. Again, your audience didn't show up to read, they showed up to watch. And if they're reading their screen, they're not paying attention to you. And just declutter. An occupational hazard, or possibly a benefit of what I do, is friends from all over the world will be sitting in terrible presentations, and they'll snap a photo and they'll text it to me or put it on social media and say, "Oh my God, Rob Wiesenbach would be dying right now." And it's true. There's no reason for this. There's no reason for this. Don't try to avoid this at all costs. All right. Oh, one more rule from another LinkedIn contact. I follow this guy's blog, Craig Haddon, Remote Possibilities blog, lots of great stuff in there. I'm calling this the 3 to 5 second rule. I don't think he's made it a rule, more like a suggestion. But I love the point of make sure the slide is digestible in 3 to 5 seconds. So they're not spending a lot of time deciphering what your slide is about. It should be pretty instantaneous. Finally, guideposts. Offer visual guideposts throughout your presentation. It's like when we're at a mall and we're trying to figure out how to get to a store, and it always has the "you are here," and we know the route and how to get there. People need the same thing. They need to know when the light at the end of the tunnel is, frankly, on your presentation. They need to know where they are. So offer them guideposts, such as an agenda slide that comes up now and then. As you can see, we've talked about the technology, we've talked about the content, and now we're going to move on to delivery. That's really, really helpful to people. So let's talk about delivery. And I'm going to take a quick sip of refreshing water. It's more important than ever to hydrate. So the first aspect of a compelling delivery style is energy. Now, energy is a subtle and mysterious force, but it comes down to 3 things in my mind. It's part mental, part emotional, and part physical. Mentally, you want to be prepared. You want to know your material backward and forward. Maybe you've even practiced it so that you're so poised and so fluid in it that you come across as confident and you can deliver it with verve, to use a synonym for energy. Also, while you're presenting, this is a concept from acting, intention. That means an actor could be doing the same script over and over, night after night, but they breathe life into it every night because they're actually living and breathing and feeling those concepts as they're saying them. And that's what we have to do too. You can't go on autopilot. You have to be present and connected to what you're saying, and as much as possible to your audience you're saying it to. So that's mental part. This now comes the emotional. You see these guideposts? Emotional, passion, conviction. If you're delivering on your area of expertise, my goodness, I hope you're passionate about it. And if you're not passionate, maybe once the current economic crisis is over, maybe you look for another job. And I know we can't be passionate about every presentation we do, especially if we're dealing with bad news, but at least conviction, to show confidence that you really believe this and people know that you actually believe the things you're saying. So important. And now let's get to the physical part. There are many aspects to physical energy. The first is volume. You should be a little louder than you would be in real life. There's nothing more enervating, to use a $5 word, I guess, Then, a speaker who's just kind of talking like this on the other end of a webinar. Come on, get excited, put a little energy into it, please. Inflection. I learned about this. Well, I always knew that you had to like emphasize certain words and give it some variety, but inflection came to me courtesy of another expert I know, Brooke Vukovic, who's a wonderful executive presence coach. And she cites a study that was done of call center operators, and they were trying to measure customer satisfaction based on call center operator performance. And the number one factor in customer satisfaction was the amount of time that the call center employees spent listening. The number two factor was inflection. Inflection means you're involved, you're concerned, you're hitting the words, you're emphasizing, you're expressing them with passion and conviction. It shows that you care, as opposed to kind of a monotone where you're obviously just reading off of some script that they've given you and going through a decision tree. People want to know you care. Posture counts. In a normal presentation, I tell people to stand up straight. When you're presenting online, sit up straight, lean forward, elbows on the desk, be into it. And maybe even consider standing up. If you can get your screen high enough, do it standing up. I know some people do it that way, and that brings a lot of energy to your performance as well, because when you're sitting back like this, the energy just kind of drains out of you. So beware. Finally, this is really, really important. Forward momentum. You want to be driving your presentation ever forward, moment by moment, word by word, idea by idea. What you don't want to be, you want to be the train, you don't want to be the car. Picture a road trip. You decided to exit the highway and take the scenic route, and you're taking all these twists and turns. You're admiring the beauty. You're stopping to have a picnic. You're going to a rest stop, checking out an antique store. That is not the approach we want for a presentation. The equivalent for a presentation is you're stopping and starting, and you're really halting and hesitant in your delivery, and you're going through various tangents and diversions, which reminds me, speaking of tangents, my aunt, well, actually, she's my cousin. I think of her as my aunt because she's older than me, but you know how families are. She's really just 3 years older than me. But anyway, she has this story. She has this, so I hope you get the point. Be a train. Stay on the rails. Don't get off track. The train leaves the station on time, and it chugs, chugs, chugs ahead constantly. All right. Interaction. That's the last piece of delivery. In the old days of webinars, we didn't have too many interactive tools, but the technology is getting better and better and better. So you want to make sure you interact with people. The easiest way is through Q&A. Now, traditionally, people put Q&A at the end of any presentation. I don't typically recommend that, because what happens is when you end on Q&A, you might end on somebody else's message and not your own. But I make exceptions for webinars because often people want to check out early, or I might want to extend the time and stay around to answer any questions I have and let other people check out. Another way to go is to intersperse Q&A. And if this was actual live webinar, I would be possibly interspersing it, maybe section after section. So that's the first thing, Q&A. The second thing is ask them questions, get them engaged, have them fill in the blanks. The three components of energy are mental, emotional, and what? Who wants to guess? And I'll give you a prize for guessing. True or false? You should always save Q&A for the end. Or ask more open-ended questions. I just talked about the challenge of focusing your content. Who here has a solution that they've used to help them focus their content? So get them involved, get them engaged. They can use the chat window, or they can speak up to answer if the technology supports that. Polling is great. People love to vote. Take a poll. Call on people. Well, this may be a little controversial, so hold on to your wig. Um, so tell people at the outset, you know what? I'm not the only expert on this. And I want to tap into the knowledge that a lot of people out there also have. So occasionally I'm going to be calling on people and asking you to weigh in on a point. Like, Judy, what's your view on payroll or whatever it is? And that keeps people on their toes. It keeps them from exiting. It helps them stay tuned in. Now, some people will say, oh gosh, you can't call on people without giving them a heads up. What if they're not there? Or what if they get upset? And if you want to notify a few people in advance, you're going to call on them, that's fine. But just don't tell the group who you're going to call on. All right? So they'll kind of live in, well, not fear, but at least a state of awareness and preparedness. So look at that. We've gone through all three major sections of the presentation. I just have a few final thoughts, and I want to point you to some important resources. This is a difficult time we're going through. We are all stressed out. We are at the end of our rope. My wife is here in the home, working in her upstairs office. She had volunteered years ago to be on her company's crisis team, and it was a pretty sleepy job until about a month ago. She's inundated, and we have a 4-year-old and a 2-year-old. They're right now napping, and I've been worried this whole time that one of them is going to get up. So it's everything we can do to hold our lives together. And throughout this crisis, I've been thinking, what can I do? How can I help? I think everybody's looking for a way to help, whether that's donating money or your time or checking in on a neighbor, helping an elderly neighbor get groceries, whatever it might be, calling people and seeing how they're doing. One small way I thought it would help people is to help them become more confident and comfortable in doing online presentations. I hope this has been helpful for you. Honestly, it's been helpful for me, if nothing else, in just doing this and having some purpose. And I would also say this is something I'm working on, and I recommend it to everybody. Be kind, be patient, be forgiving, not just of other people, but of yourself. This is a hard thing we're all doing. And I'm talking not just about online presentations, but going through this current crisis. So give others and give yourself a little slack. So a few of those resources I mentioned. I mentioned Jay Baer earlier. Again, you can always pause this and do some Googling on these resources. 7 virtual event success factors. These are some of the LinkedIn people who chimed in, some of my connections. You can freeze this, look these people up, follow them on LinkedIn or other channels if you'd like. And here's some of my own stuff. I've got a lot of videos on YouTube about presentations and storytelling and communication, a lot of stuff on my website. I've actually got a link. A lot of the principles I've talked about are backed up by actual studies and evidence. And so I have a lot of links to those studies on that resources page, which you might want to look up. My blog has hundreds of blog posts about presentation skills and communications and storytelling. If you're interested, I've got a mailing list. Once a month, I write an email. It's not too promotional, and it shares some of my best tips and the wisdom of others. Some of the topics have been, do you suffer from resting skeptical face? I hope you're intrigued. The Tina Fey Guide to Career Success. So check that out if you'd like. I'd be happy for you to join me. And I also have several books. The middle one is on presentation skills. All of these are available online at your favorite retailer in not only paperback and ebook, but also audiobook recorded by me. And this latest one, this Unleash the Power of Storytelling, it is 2 years old. Now, if I could just tell you this, the second year outsold the first year, like triple the sales. And I don't know why or how. I think it's a testament to the importance of this subject. So check out any of those. I hope, again, that you found this helpful. I know I have. If you've got any questions or want to know more, feel free to reach out to me, and take care of yourself. Take care of your family. Be well.